This is Andy Perrault for Boxing Social in association with Betfred. And for the first time since March, I believe it was, I'm delighted to be joined by Eddie Hearn the morning after the night before of the second Fight Camp show. Eddie, how are you doing first and foremost, mate?
I'm good. I just woke up literally not long ago and straight away Tebbet was on my case. Come on, give us an interview. It's quite nice, Andy, to finish these shows and then, you know what it's like for me normally. I finish and then all you lot are just like, there's a row of you and I always do all of them. And it's really nice, I must say, just to like finish and basically just go home. Last night I was actually home by midnight, which, you know, on a show night is unusual. So, no, really good. I mean, look, we've been very lucky. You know, we got another fight of the year last night with Harper-Jonas. I don't know whether it's luck or I don't know whether it's the environment that we're creating there, you know, that is making these guys and girls go at it. But really privileged to be there last night to see another amazing fight with Harper-Jonas.
Let's obviously start off with the top and work our way down. A brilliant fight between Terry Harper and Natasha Jonas, ending with a split draw. Just what was your reflections on the fight, Eddie?
I thought Natasha Jonas was amazing. I mean, no one really gave her a chance in the fight, to be honest. And last week even I was saying, like, there was something about sometimes a fighter gets themselves into this sort of mental state where it's just absolutely all or nothing. It's everything. And this is my moment. You know, might be my last chance, but I know that I've put more than enough work in and I'm going to take this opportunity on Friday night. And that's what I felt off Natasha Jonas. So all last week, I was kind of looking at everybody. Oh, Harper's invincible. She's this, she's that. And I was thinking that Natasha would give her a great fight. I didn't really expect her to win, if I'm honest. And, you know, I think after 4 rounds, I was thinking, wow, you know, this is unbelievable. Tasha was really badly hurt in the second round. Then she came back in the fight. She hurt Harper really badly in the 8th round. I was scoring it with Dave Colwell, who was sat next to me, and I had Natasha 5-4 up going into the last. I actually personally scored the last to Harper, but a lot of people scored it to Jonas. So it was one of them. I did feel that if anyone was going to get the win, it was going to be Natasha. I think if I was actually scoring the fight, I actually scored it a draw as well. But I think, you know, I wouldn't say, was that Natasha unlucky not to get the win? Yeah, maybe. You know, was Terry fortunate to get the draw? Maybe. You know, I don't know. Some people talk about, you know, you got to rip the belt from the champion and stuff like that. I'm not sure I necessarily agree with that, to be honest with you. I think if you win the fight, you win the fight. But I don't think a lot of people can argue with a draw. But I think if most people were going to have to pick a winner, perhaps Natasha Jonas got the nod.
It was obviously a brilliant fight, and there's certainly a lot of demand for a rematch effectively as soon as the fight was over. I literally, about 5 minutes before I started talking to you, I just finished with Joe Gallagher, and he was talking about the rematch as well.
Yeah.
Realistically, when do you think we could see that, if obviously he was to go ahead?
Yeah, Ron Lewis put a really good tweet out earlier. He said the first fight was supposed to take place in a leisure centre, because remember, originally it was going to be Doncaster Dome on a next gen. And the eventual fight took place in my back garden, and the rematch will fill an arena. And I thought that was a really good way to describe the progression of this fight. So it's mad because, you know, pre-Natasha Jonas, all the talk was about a Terry Harper unification fight. Obviously, we signed Eva Brodnicka, but we learned that she's got a mandatory against Maya. Terry Harper does have a mandatory as well against Fanders. But for me, you know, you'd always like to unify as a champ, but it does look like Brodnicka may have to fight Maya. So for me, the absolute next fight should be the rematch. You know, we have to see that fight again. 1, Jonas has to get her opportunity again. And 2, it was an unbelievable fight. Everyone will want to see it again. And that could fill the M&S Arena in Liverpool or the Sheffield Arena in Yorkshire, you know. And I think that just goes to show you the growth of women's boxing. And again, if it's a good fight, it's a good fight. It doesn't matter who it's between. And that was, I thought it was thrilling. And I thought skill levels, right up there. You know, drama, right up there. Pace, energy, all this, right up there. So ticked every box.
What was it like, obviously, having Joe Gallagher and Steffi Ball in opposing corners to each other already? And I'm sure you'd have been able to hear everything a lot clearer than what you would have done on a normal fight night occasion.
It was a bit spicy during the week, to be honest with you. You know, like Joe, looking back now, you can really see Joe really wanted to win this fight. You know, he messaged me, I think on Thursday or Wednesday, and said, who do you think is going to win this fight? It's quite a strange thing for him to text me. And I said, I think Terry's the favourite, but I think Natasha looks in unbelievable shape, and I think it's going to be a great fight. And he just come back, he went, Tasha's going to win this. I'm telling you now. I was like, all right, Joe. Like, he was pumped for this fight. And I think after the fight, you saw the respect between not just the fighters, but the trainers as well. You know, they both care a lot for their fighters, and they both wanted to win badly. But at the end of it, it's the great thing about boxing, isn't it? You know, you punch holes in each other for 10 or 12 rounds, and then you shake hands at the end of it and give each other a hug. You know what I mean? It doesn't really make sense, but that kind of applies to the trainers as well. Joe was a bit fired up after the fight. You know, he cut to me, she won that. I said, look, it's very close, Joe. And then once he calmed down, he was like, wow, what a fight. We've got to do that again. And I said, absolutely. You know, and they won't have to call too hard for the rematch. Do you know what I mean? Like, for me, I think sometimes it's a bit like with Taylor Pursoon. If you don't rematch, sometimes that can, you know, almost leave a cloud over your career and your profile. Do you know what I mean? So whatever Terry does now, people will always go, yeah, but you should rematch Natasha. Yeah, and Katie's had it. You know, she had that fight with Pursoon where she got the decision, and then she moved up a weight to fight Lenartu. It was like, oh, but you're not rematching Pursoon. That's all we're interested in. If you're not rematching her, we don't want to know. So for Harper, I think, you know, because of the fact she's young and improving, she'll want to give herself the challenge of the rematch as well. I think she's that kind of person. I think when she reads people saying, oh, it was very close, you know, I thought Natasha won, or, you know, all this sort of cloud over it, I think she'll want to try and put that right. And I'm very confident her and Steffi Bull will give Natasha the opportunity of a rematch.
We saw some very convincing performances last night from, you know, CBS, Anthony Fowler, and obviously Hopi Price. But was there any kind of relief that the Harper-Jonas fight kind of exceeded expectations?
Definitely. You know, don't forget, I see what you see. Do you know what I mean? I'm not deluded. I know when things are going unbelievable and things are just average. And it was quite average till the main event. Do you know what I mean? Good performances. I think my worry with this card was that I always sort of, the pressure was always on the main event. Do you know what I mean? Last week, I thought the card flowed great, you know. And by the way, I think this Friday is actually going to be the best of the three. If you look at the individual fights, and we'll go to them later, but losing Fiaz and Baker was a kick in the nuts, because that was going to be a 8-round all action to kick us off the night. Do you know what I mean? And losing that, going down to 4, I'll be honest, when I arrived at fight camp last night, I was a bit worried that, you know, those first 3 fights might not, you know, and in the end, I was really pleased that Johnny Phillips gave us 6 rounds, you know, to sort of buffer out Callum Smith and Fowler. But it's funny, you know, like, I've had a couple of tweets this morning. It makes me laugh. You're so lucky, Hearn. It was average last night and you got out of jail. It's like, are you that bothered? Do you know what I mean? Why don't you just turn around and go, great main event? You know, like I said, week 2 for me, the focus was always on the World Championship event. And it did say it got us out of jail. Like, it turned the night into a memorable night, other than a night that might just have been okay. And yeah, so I guess in that case, we got out of jail, and we were very lucky, and everyone's talking about what an amazing fight it was. So 2 down, 2 to go.
Just to touch on Kane Baker before we go through the rest of the card, you know, how gutted was you for Kane, and what was the kind of, just explain to me and to everyone what happened with Akib?
So I got to catch up with Steve Wood to get the exact details. He didn't feel well. He felt sick, and he went to the hospital actually after the weigh-in for a sort of check over. It was a gutter, because one of the things I've loved so much about this bubble and this fight camp is seeing fighters like Kane and even like Johnny Phillips, you know, just experience something that they never thought they'd experience in their wildest dreams. And when Jamie Moore decided to pull Akib out of the fight, which was definitely the right decision, I just thought to myself, oh no, Kane, you know, because he's been, the smile he had on his face all week, you couldn't take it off him. So when we sat down with Errol and told him, obviously he was heartbroken. And once you start saying to him, right, this is what we're going to do for you, you know, because you can't just say to a kid, sorry, mate, here's your bag and off you go. you know, you got to sit down with him, give him a plan. Right, this is everything's going to work out for you now. And then he was a lot happier. Do you know what I mean? To know that, one, he'd been looked after, but two, more importantly for him, that fight's happening, and that fight's being rescheduled. And Akib Fiaz is not allowed, and he don't. By the way, he won't want any other fight. But I promise you, that fight's happening. And as they said in an interview last night, what if Akib doesn't, can't fight? What happens? I said 100% you'll be on our September show. So he was happy. He sat next to me last night. We had a good chat, and yeah, he was disappointed, but now he's comfortable that he's being looked after, and also he's going to get the fight, and that's what's important to him because he was in great shape.
Eddie, just to ask, because I saw a lot of people tweeting and asking, will Kane obviously receive any form of kind of his purse?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We looked after him. We sat down. We went through with anything for Errol. He's been well compensated, and he still gets the fight. So financially, he's in good shape. But he would have rather not been compensated. He would have rather just fought. Do you know what I mean? Like, he was getting paid for not fighting. Like, he didn't get bashed up, but he got paid. But he would have rather got bashed up. This is a fighter's mentality. That's why they're special people. But as I explained to him last night, great news, you get paid and you still get the fight. So, but people, you only get paid when you fight in boxing. So people don't realise, like, he's had 6-7 weeks grafting his nuts off for this moment. So he's got to get paid, So, yeah, he was happy. And listen, I really like the kid. I hope he does well in the fight. And listen, don't rule him out in the fight either,
Just move away from that one, Ed, and onto kind of the rest of the card. Start off with Anthony Fowler. Brilliant performance from Anthony. He seemed a lot more assured. His jab seemed very, very good last night. But one thing in particular, was you surprised that all that Harper's corner never pulled him out?
Yeah, I say it's easy sitting there. Do you know what I mean? Like, but when you know what it means to Harper and also the corner, when I went into the change room before that fight, even the corner team were like, this is it, this is our moment, and sometimes maybe that doesn't allow you to think right or straight in certain times. So I agree with everyone saying he should have been pulled out probably 2 rounds earlier, in my opinion, because where he's not a puncher as well, he wasn't going to win the fight. So then you're just sustaining punishment, sometimes unnecessary punishment. Do you know what I mean? So I thought Fowler boxed really well. When I was watching him for the first 2 or 3 rounds, I thought he looked like a different fighter, to be honest with you. He got a bit carried away. He got a little bit sloppy. He wore some from Harper, but because I think that was mainly because he felt that Harper couldn't hurt him, But I was really impressed with the jab. His movement, I thought, was great. I thought his feet were better. And I just can't, a lot of how I was feeling watching that fight was, I can't wait to see him in with Cheeseman and Fitz and Eggington and Metcalf. Like, he's going to be in so many great fights. And then it's over to him to see if him and Shane can go on to that European and maybe even world level as well.
What is the next step for Anthony? Is it one of the Eggingtons or Cheesemans?
Definitely. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what the board do. Obviously, Scotty Fitz is now back in training, but will he hold on to his British title belt? I think he needs a fight before Fowler now, and therefore Fowler against Fitz wouldn't happen till early 2021, and it has to be with a crowd because it fills up, Preston, it fills up the Echo. Cheeseman Fowler is a brilliant fight. Fowler Metcalf is a great fight for Liverpool as well. Eggington's right in the mix there. Eggington wants to rematch Cheeseman. Like, it's that 154. We've got all the key players there. I mean, other than Metcalf's with Frank, but we've got, and even this Friday, we've got Conway against Mansouri. Great fight. Another fight that's just, will slip off the radar. And Kieran Conway wins that fight. He's right in that mix as well. So I kind of feel like we've got a lot of options at 154 pounds. And I think Fowler is just, there's still time to improve for Fowler, but he's going to be in thrilling fights.
Away from Fowler and on to Hopey Price. Hopey, assured performance, obviously up against a very tough Johnny Phillips. But what was you most impressed with from Hopey last night?
I was most impressed by his strength and his ability to tie up Johnny Phillips. Like, I was so pleased with Johnny Phillips, with the fight, because a bit sloppy, but in terms of learning for Hopey, that kind of experience is invaluable. You know, normally for a 20-year-old kid, you're putting in with guys, you know, might have a decent record coming in from Eastern Europe or Spain or wherever. You know, 1 round, 2 rounds, great. But what are you actually learning? And what he learned with Johnny Phillips is he had to switch on for 6 rounds. You know, he had to rough it out, tough it out, take a few shots. But the learning experience was invaluable. And the kid's 20 years old. You know, he's going to be a fantastic talent. He's going to grow. He's going to get stronger and stronger. He's very clever. But for me, we know that his feet and his shot selection and everything is great. But what I thought was great last night was his ability to tie Phillips up, who's strong on the inside, who's rugged. And how many times did he get hit, really? You know, I mean, I thought it was a really good performance.
I mean, on to obviously the final about Chris Smith and Nathan Fowler. A brilliant performance from Chris Smith. Yeah. I'm sure you'd have liked to have gone on a bit longer, but what make of it?
I think Smith was clever because a lot of people were saying about Fowler, you know, he's moved up from light heavyweight. He moves well. And if you allow him to move and get into a rhythm, he could do well in this fight. But Chris just didn't allow him to get in any kind of rhythm, come out from the first round ferociously and just battered him, you know. And only in the second round, when Thorley started to have some success, and I was thinking, here we go, and he just decided to go for it. He walked onto an absolute huge right hand and couldn't recover. I think sometimes like where Callum Smith benefits is he's now been part of big occasions. So the O2 against Riakporhe, you know, going into Glover's backyard in Liverpool at the Echo Arena to win the Commonwealth title. And I think that last night, he may have froze a little bit, you know, Thorley, on the occasion. But I think he came up against a very good cruiserweight in Callum Smith. And, you know, I saw Richard Riakporhe's tweet last night because I started saying about Tommy McCarthy for the European title. But Tommy McCarthy is mandatory for the European title, and Riakporhe saying, I should get the European title first. He's probably actually right. But obviously he's already fought McCarthy and beat him. So it's really interesting, that whole mix. Again, we're well stocked on the Matchroom roster for cruiserweights. You know, Richard Riakporhe, of course, Lawrence Okoli fighting for the world title, Tommy McCarthy, Chris Smith. So loads of great fights to be made, and another division I'm really excited about.
Do you see McCarthy, Smith taking place next, or...?
Well, the problem is that now Lawrence has vacated the European title. Tommy McCarthy he's in, but then it will go down to see who he should fight. And obviously, Callum Smith's not the next available ranked fighter. So we don't know whether that fight is just a fight that I think would be a great fight and one that hopefully we can make.
Touch on to next week now as well, Eddie. Obviously, start and work down again. Felix Cash, Jason Wellborn. What should we expect from that? Because you said that you feel that next week will be the best one.
On paper, from top to bottom. Yeah, I really do. Like, I'll go through it. I mean, John Doherty, who I think he's one of the most exciting young prospects, so heavy-handed, so vicious. He's fighting Anthony Fox. Now, Anthony Fox is on a great run. You know, he just beat Dwayne Sinclair handily over 8 rounds. He started off, he was almost moving towards journeyman mode, but then he came back. Big lump. They're 2 massive 168-pounders. That's going to be a war in the opening fight over 8 rounds. I really feel that Kieran Conway against Nav Mansouri is going to be a great fight as well. Conway's never in a bad fight. Nav Mansouri looks bang up for this as well. That's 10 rounds. Then we go Shannon Courtenay to Rachel Ball. Loads of people believe Rachel Ball can win this fight. Again, Shannon Courtenay's all action. It's a good, solid step up for her to see if she's ready to start moving up in towards titles. And then I think the one that people are sleeping on a little bit, to be honest with you, is Zelfa Barrett against Eric Donovan. Now, Eric Donovan is a very, very good fighter. Undefeated as an amateur. I think he was a 5-time Irish national champion, 2 times European bronze medalist as well. That is a really tricky fight. Southpaw, Zelfa Barrett coming to make a big statement on his first Matchroom show as well. And listen, Cash Wellborn. I mean, if Wellborn's up for it, which I know he is, speaking to Errol, and I know he's trained hard, this will be a war. When do you see Jason Wellborn in a bad fight? I mean, look, last time out, I believe he picked up an injury against Metcalf. He's struggling at 154 pounds, even fought Jarrett Hurd for the unified world title. Unbelievable fight with Matthew Macklin. You know, knocked out Marcus Morrison in a great fight as well. And I just think Felix Cash, you know, coming off the Callum fight, giving us what was another, for me, a fight of the year contender there. It's just going to be all action. And I really feel that sometimes, you know, when you look at the card and the way it flows through, I think this will be the strongest card on Friday. So fingers crossed.
Just want to quickly touch on the final card as well, Eddie, because we know that Martin Coley's after a new opponent now.
Yeah.
What is the latest with that?
So we're struggling a little bit, to be honest with you, because obviously with a quarantine situation as well, there are 2 other heavyweight fights that we are making for that card, which we will announce next week, along with Bacoli as well. And now, because we're allowed more fights under the new board rule, we've also got a really good little super middleweight cracker to start off the night as well. So we're really bolstering up that card early this week, and there'll be some announcements from Monday.
So is that White Povetkin card, is that 7 fights you're aiming for now? Or
6 minimum, possibly 7. Yeah.
Eddie, just to move away from that, obviously, I have to ask, we haven't had a chance to speak, yourself on Boxing Social since Frank's message to you. Just firstly, just go from back to the beginning of it. What was your thoughts and your reaction to seeing Frank's message?
Yeah, a bit of a strange one, really. I mean, it's hard when you see that kind of stuff and you know the landscape of the business and know the position they're in, not to think it was a bit of a publicity stunt. But you have to go through the motions of reacting to it. I can't be seen just to be completely arrogant and go, look, you're fucked. I'm not. See you later. If something's good for boxing, if something's good for my fighters, if something's good for my broadcasters, and if something's good for our business, it doesn't matter what I think of another company or what I think of Frank Warren. It's something we should look at. So I just said in an interview, the first one I gave, look, it's a bit weird to put out a press release. Like, you could have just called me or sent me an email saying, do you like this concept? Let's discuss it. And then, of course, he then called me a couple of hours later after he saw the interview. I was in a press conference. I called him back. And we had a chat, for the first time in, ever. And yeah, I think there's some good fights on the poster that they've created probably during lockdown. And there's some fights that obviously are impossible to make and are not of interest at the moment. But I don't see why we shouldn't have a conversation and see, if some of those fights can be made.
Was that a weird experience, effectively speaking to Frank for the first time, knowing you've both been involved in the sport for so long?
It probably was, yeah. I mean, yeah, probably, yeah. I mean, I think, again, like the week of Cheeseman against Eggington, the board received, 3, 4, 5 emails of complaint from Queensbury. And I said to Frank Warren, I don't like grasses, and your company has got them in. So you have to understand that for us, like the biggest issue for me, it's quite a tough spot for us, Andy, because some of the fans will say, yeah, come on, work together and all that. But when you see from the inside, the letters coming into the board, the legal letters. I mean, I don't know. How many legal letters have I had in the last 5 or 6 years from Frank Warren? A dozen. More. 2 dozen. Do you know what I mean? So part of me goes, no, you're all right, mate. This is a fair cop, level playing field. You got your business, I got mine. Thank you. Some people were saying it was desperation from him. I think it was your interview where he said, I'm not desperate. But it's hard with Frank because, one of the things we said was, what he said was, look, let's cut the backwards and forwards. And then 3 hours later, I watched your interview with him and he was, 180 beats per minute on the blood pressure again. So we'll see. I do think we should have that dialogue anyway. And I think that, look, honestly, this is not something that's going to happen soon. Like, I've got my plans for the business. We're all in a real tough spot at the moment. I'm comfortable with where we are. I said to him, let me get White Povetkin out of the way. We'll meet up in September or whatever. I think the Fury AJ fight, and now as well, don't forget, Fury's going to have to fight Dillian Whyte if he beats Deontay Wilder. So I'm going to be involved with Frank and doing more stuff with Frank, and hopefully that will lead to other fights being made. Again, frustratingly, we had a situation where we could have made a fight with Chris Jenkins and Conor Benn. We made Chris Jenkins an offer that he was over the moon with, that his trainer was over the moon with, that his manager was over the moon with, but they wouldn't let him fight. So they had the opportunity to almost show good faith and say, okay, let's start working together. But they couldn't do it. So we have to see if this is a publicity stunt or if it's real. And more importantly, even if it is real, we have to see if I want to do it. I'll decide whether we're going to we're going to do this. But good that we've had a chat, and we will definitely have a meeting in September and see if there's anything. But for me, it's a 2021 down the road project to look at. Right now, we've got to focus on our own business.
Eddie, you mentioned you obviously saw my interview. Frank responding to some of your comments in the interview you did with IFL that you've previously mentioned in this interview. Just what were kind of your thoughts on some of the things Frank said, about your viewing figures? He said that he does have a contract with Tyson Fury and he does work with Tyson. What was kind of your thoughts?
I didn't watch the whole interview. I saw the clip that you guys put out saying that he's not desperate, or something like that, and a little. If you want to tell me what he said, I can answer him individually. But on some of the things you just said, I mean, the viewing figures that Coppinger gets are the viewing figures that are given by the broadcaster.
Saying that your viewing figures were collated over the 3 different channels that were put out on Sky, not an individual one.
Of course, because you've got the different platforms, the different subscribers. So, for example, Sky Sports Main Event, which will be a key driver of basically anyone who's got the full Sky package will watch Sky Sports Main Event, but Sky Sports Mix is a channel that might not be available to certain Sky Sports customers. So what, do you not want to count then? Are they not real people? BT are happy. BT have got extra channels. They could put it on 2 channels if they want as well. It doesn't really change the viewing figures, because if it was on 1 channel, then the Sky Sports subscribers. But of course, if we can offer it to more people, great. But the viewership are the total number of people watching it at the time. It's not. But when I think BT, when you're delivering an average of 3,000 people on a live sports event, the broadcaster has to be looking at things going, what the fuck is going on here? And maybe this has prompted this move. Do you know what I mean? Tyson Fury and his contract situation, I've absolutely no idea. All I know is he's not the guy tasked with negotiating the AJ fight. So I don't know how that affects his contract, but I've been told not to deal with Frank Warren and to deal with Bob Arum on Tyson Fury. But, a lot of these things, I kind of feel like these interviews make things go backwards. Do you know what I mean? So you and IFL and all those guys are like, you really want sound bites. So it's probably better off for me not to go in and answer his questions and say, look, I'm not going to say anything. Let's have our meeting and see where we go. But at the same time, he'll want to back up, he'll want to stand up for his name and his business. And I will as well. So, I think that it still goes back to, Andy, we're in a bloody great position in this market. And I've worked so hard to get to that position. So part of me feels like, why should I give an olive branch out and help you back up? Maybe we should just finish the job. But again, going back to my original statement was, if it's good for my fighters, if it's good for my broadcasts, if it's good for my business, then we definitely have to look at it.
I never actually came into the interview with regards to trying to get the sound bites. I understand what you're saying. I understand how people might do it in, or have done it with interviews, but we've
you're asking questions. Yeah. It's your job. It's your job to ask questions. But when you ask me a question, he ain't going to like the answer. So it's difficult, unless I do no interviews, because next thing he's going to come on, do another one and just explode and, go red. But I'm chilled. Like, I've made the call. I'm up for a bite of lunch, get White out of the way, have a little rest. September, we'll talk. I tell you now, my plans are almost set for the year. So this ain't something that's going to happen this year.
Oh, any exclusives?
What?
Any exclusives?
Well, loads. It's pretty obvious, isn't it? We've got September is Buatsi. We've got October. We've got planned Selby Kambosos and Lewis Ritson. We've got Usyk against Chisora. We've got AJ against Pulev. I've got to find spots for Josh Warrington, Billy Joe Saunders, Callum Smith, Luke Campbell against Ryan Garcia. I ain't got no space for these fantasy shows. So, but again, there are fights for me. I mean, when you look at the fights, Buatsi Yard was the one that stands out and says, that's a must 2021 fight. So there you go. Well, let's talk about it for 2021. Chris Jenkins against Conor Benn. Just let him fight. Now's the time where, let's be honest, right? And this sounds quite arrogant, but if I agreed to do anything of this sort, fuck me, I will not be helping them out. So you've got to show good faith with me. So why don't you just let Chris Jenkins box Conor Benn? right? He's happy. He's over the moon. We'll start the ball rolling. It's a gesture of goodwill. Can't bring yourself to do it, can you? That's the problem. So, yeah, we'll see. But my plans are set for 20. This isn't something that's going to happen but there are fights, by the way, that have been ordered. Conor Benn, Chris Jenkins, Liam Williams, Demetrius Andrade. So they're going to happen anyway. And they will happen in 2020.
Final thing on it all, and just to reiterate, I'm not staying put on nothing. It's just because when Frank says something, you say something, and you get two different opinions. Effectively, it's my job to work out what's what and get everybody to understand. I asked him obviously about Ben Jenkins' offer. He said that you went straight to Ben and you didn't go through Frank.
No, I didn't. I went straight to Andy Ayling, and then his manager called me and said, what's going on? And I told him the manager has every right to know what the offer is to the fighter. Every right. Just like when he wrote back a couple of days ago to make an offer for Conor Benn, he copied in Tony Sims. Quite right. Tony Sims is his manager. You know what I mean? So, but the issue is, Andy, it's not good for the fighters because Chris Jenkins wants to fight. He's ready to fight. Why are you holding him up? Why don't you just let him go and fight? He might beat Conor Benn. And then you've got your fighter, whose profile's gone through the roof with bigger viewing figures, bigger profile. Congratulations. So, lots to discuss.
Eddie, just a couple more quick things. We haven't heard anything recently about Callum Smith and Canelo and what have you. Have you got any updates with regards to that?
Yeah, Callum was there last night, actually, as a representative for Natasha Jonas on the management side. I think the Canelo fight will happen. I do. I really feel like Eddie Reynoso, Canelo Alvarez want to fight Callum Smith, and I think it'll happen. It won't happen on September the 12th, but really a lot of these big guys, Andy, all they've got to do is try and get out once this year. This is what I'm saying to all these fighters now. AJ, Josh Warrington, Callum Smith, Billy Joe Saunders, Luke Campbell, all out. These top fighters just got to try and box once because we don't know. Second waves, I think, was it Preston got locked down yesterday or something like that. I tell you what, if I was a fighter and I banked a fight and I got me dough, I'd be very happy right now. I think the guys and girls last night and the week before are going, gonna have a little holiday and see what happens in this crazy world.
Final thing, Eddie, it's your old mate Chris Eubank Senior's birthday today.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, how old is he?
54.
Wow, it's in some shape, the boy.
Anything you'd like to say to him? Any kind of?
I would like to say, Christopher Livingstone Eubank, today is your birthday. It was the day that you were born on this earth. It was the day that you came into the earth as a warrior and you expressed warrior's code from youth to 54 years of age. You are a fine individual. You incorporate sartorial elegance with the true spirit of the warrior's code. Happy birthday, Mr. Eubank. And despite my impersonations, which is actually should be seen as a compliment, you are a fine individual, a great fighter, and I hope you have a blessed day.
Eddie, it's been a pleasure to catch up with you. I'm sure I'll speak to you again soon. Best of luck, obviously, with next week. And thank you for your time as always. Thanks for speaking to
No worries. Cheers, mate. Take care.
Cheers, Eddie. Speak to you now.